Really, the purpose of that is, in one line, is equipping people to prosper.
One is that overlook themselves as the primary architects. So whatever they complain about is something that they did or didn't do that kind of put it in place. The other thing that I caution leaders about is culture is not an HR initiative. While HR has an important role to play, culture is everybody's business. And the business has to own a cultural transformation, not HR. HR will own its part in that transformation. Really, the business needs to own it.
Organizations get the culture they tolerate.
There are espoused core values and then there are actual ones. And a lot of times leaders are caught up with the espoused ones, thinking that those are the actual core values that are operationalized. But in reality, it could be all kinds of things. Most times they're not aware of the actual values. It's like these are unwritten rules, these are unwritten values that people just adopt automatically through pressure and tensions. The same natural laws apply. The interesting thing that I find about it is that you can use those natural laws, interconnectivity, flow, and balance for good, the greater good, or they can be mutated into something that's corrupt. I take a look at the biotic and abiotic living and non-living connections because they all come together. And a lot of times leaders overlook the non-living ones. When you have layers of corruption operationalized within your organizational system, you have subsystems of corruption, then that creates layers of drag on the system. And that example that I gave you is part of a leadership system where they ignore there's a corruption going on there. Trust has a magical and powerful impact on how people connect.
Organizations get the culture they tolerate. It's a more intentional, designed approach.
I have a working definition, I'll put it that way, but I see it as an abuse of entrusted power for personal gain. And because it's systemic, I would go on to say that it can lead to intentional and unintended compliance with a larger counter agenda. Corruption, in most cases, takes multiple people because it's systemic and they need people at different points in the system where the system is vulnerable. Corruption starts as something different. It might have a noble cause. And then over time, it morphs. Organizational silence to me is a system. And with corruption, there are multiple systems at play. Silence is one of the systems, and that comes through a lack of people being willing to blow the whistle. There's no policy to protect them, things like that. It's needed, and people threaten each other to keep the silence going. They say things like, "You better keep your mouth shut."
I wish I had $1 for every time I heard that. We're too busy because
Mhm.
we're tired by now. If that were the case, instead of team effort or organizational, it's an inward drawing instead of an outward flowing.
That's right. And it's the opposite of interconnectivity. Delegation is a big mistake, especially because of how systems try to protect themselves. And corruption is a system that will protect itself.
And he was telling me about all the problems with his people, and they couldn't do this and they can't do this and they can't do this. And I said, you do know that the fish rods from the head down.
Yeah. Trust is the pillar for the framework. That's why I call it the pillar of trust. Trust is one of the highest quality connective factors. Trust and love. Those are the two highest qualities. I think every time I work on trust building, every organization is different, but I use the same pillar of trust.
Trust is such a overused word that when you and I talk about trust, we think about it within a very specific context and how trust touches everything.
Because trust is situational, you never trust the same way in every situation. So what it does is it shows what you rely on so that you can start to think about maybe I shouldn't use this style in this situation because they're going to be afraid that your transparency is going to expose them.
We live in an ever-changing world, an ever-changing workplace.
So trust building is a second skill that's needed.
I can tell you, I do strategic planning for some of my clients. And when we first start, so much of what they say to me is, last year we had such a great plan and it didn't go anywhere. I said, because you didn't engage your people in the plan.